Hey, Lee Wolf here. Welcome to Game Face Monday. We are live. It's a beautiful day here in the Northeast where I am, and it's almost actually like a crisp spring day instead of the heat waves we've been getting. Happy to have everyone watching and listening, and thankful for all of you for being here with us today. As always, Mr. Richie Bello is by my side. And today we have a special guest, Dr. John Minarchik, who is the founder of PCS Global. How you guys doing?
Great. Yeah, thank you, Lee.
Awesome. It's great to have you here. I've heard a lot about you, all positive. I don't think I've heard as much positive about a person in my life than I've heard about you coming from Richie. So I'm really excited to pick your brain today and have you on the show. And today we're going to be discussing, before we break away for a minute, we're going to be talking about, we have been talking about how reviews can affect your dealership, whether it's a loss of customers, if it's morale, and also it could be obviously have a very positive effect on a dealership. And one of the main things that your reviews are going to be based on are your employees. And today we're going to be talking to Dr. John about the assessment process and the difference between having, someone that might be highly intelligent and know everything about the automotive industry, but maybe we're putting them in the wrong environment, or maybe we're putting them in the right environment. And that's where assessments come in. And I've been reading up a lot on that lately, and I've actually taken a few assessments, and it really is interesting because it actually opens not only the eyes of the person hiring, but it opens the eyes sometimes of the person being hired, and you never know really where you may have a better fit. But before we get rolling on the show, just going to break away for one moment to hear from Shop Smart Autos.
We continue to show dealerships across the country how to retain their customers, but now Shop Smart Autos wants to bring the new customers right to your showroom floor. The car they want? It's sitting on your lot, and Shop Smart Autos can bring you the VIN-specific leads that take them straight to your door. These aren't just leads. They're nurtured, targeted, and matched down to the exact vehicle. You'll sell more cars faster, and your team is going to thank you for it. Shop Smart Autos VIN-specific leads. Let SSA show them the way to your showroom floor.
All right, we are back. We are live. So, Dr. John, just for the audience sake here, give them in broad strokes. What are you doing over at PCS Global?
Actually, we have we call it PCS Enterprises because we actually have 6 business units that operate under PCS. But the primary starting was as a psychologist, therapist. We have 20 therapists on our staff that do work now virtually as well as in face-to-face in Northfield, Michigan. But the consulting, coaching, and training divisions are the ones that are the most unique. We've been doing this now for quite a few years as we start to identify how to be able to build teams, increase culture, improve customer relations, and then frankly hire better from the start. We like to think that we can help develop these teams better from the start, and then we can retain them better if we have put them in the right jobs, the right seats. So it's our job is to identify as best we can how to help individuals to get the right kind of approach, if they will, and be treated the right way in order to be able to flourish in their current positions.
Wow. That's actually pretty brilliant to hear that you actually have therapists on staff.
Yeah, we do.
Wow. Yeah, that's not something I would think a lot of time. Well, in the world, I actually go to therapy. I think it's something that most people should do, just for a check-in here and there.
Because he deals with me. That's it.
Which, yeah. But it's I in most cases though, or when I talk to people in the world, there's a lot of pushback when it comes to therapy, almost like it's I don't know, taboo, dirty word, kind of thing. But I think that's really, really interesting to think about how if you're placing people in the world on a psychological level, how they best fit. Wow. So the therapists actually come together and help to build like better assessments?
It's interesting. Yes, but the primary assessment that we use for doing that is called the behavioral style profile. We created it 11 years ago. It's the culmination of my life work. And what we do is we'll use that tool both in therapeutic settings, but also in our coaching, consulting, and training. And so the ability to be able to sort of move from the clinical room to the real showroom to people in their real work environments, we believe is the gift that we can give ourselves to help them to be able to learn how to function more effectively and more crisply. And honestly, it's kind of a funny thing. Therapy, like 30 years ago, was in the closet. People didn't talk about it much. But today, with newer generations, quite frankly, it's like my therapist says is often now quoted. So we're finding that it's become less and less of a stigma, and quite frankly, more and more of mainstream, which is when we started to look at transitioning from the therapeutic box, if you will, to then the showrooms or to the rooms where we actually see people working. Because if you are happy in your home life, we absolutely know you're more productive in your personal and your professional life. So what our job is to take a look at both. And every once in a while, we'll have folks that are going to kind of need a little bit of tune up on the therapeutic side. And these are confidential, of course. But we also think that the coaching that we do utilizes some of the same skills that we have as therapists. So I think it's a kind of a twofer, if you will.
Yeah, that's really interesting what you said a moment earlier, that people walk around saying my therapist mentioned, or because I do every once in a while, and I'm just coming up on 50 years old, so I definitely have seen the arc from like the 90s to now on how people so but I do find myself every once in a while saying, my therapist mentioned, and then in my head I'm going, I can't believe I just said that. It's like something that you would never talk about in the past.
The cool part about what you said, actually, it gives me goosebumps, honestly, because I'm proud when I hear people say that. I'm proud that they are open-minded enough to go, this is a complex world. And I mean, if I can take a quick sojourn on this, we now know that the human beings have somewhere between 60,000 and 80,000 thoughts a day.
Wow, yeah.
Men typically are at the 60, females are typically at the 80,000. But when you start to think about those thoughts, right, how many of those thoughts do you recognize? And most of us have, maybe a recollection of 2 or 3 or 4 that we really thought about thinking. So the idea is that we're passing life now with 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And it's even more profound is the first 5 years of our life. We now know children learn somewhere between 7 and 12 times faster than adults.
Right.
And ironic as that is, if let's just take the lower end of 7 multiplier and 60,000 thoughts, that means by the time a child is 5, they've had 767 million thoughts, up, by the way, to 1.5 billion. And then here's what's ironic. Again, how many of those thoughts does the average adult recognize that they had in his first 5 years of life? Again, usually 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 5. And those are enhanced by pictures, videos, or stories. But why that's so profound, 80% of our personality is locked in by the age of 5. So therefore, we are who we are as adults based upon who we were as a child. And most of us think that we have to be this way because this is the way we've always been. And what we talk about then is on a behavioral analysis or on these states of mind, can we start to slowly change who we are? And we believe the answer is yes, which is why we believe that what we're talking about is important both therapeutically, personal in our personal lives and our professional lives, and also in team building, culture in our companies, and getting along and hiring right from the start.
Yeah, beautiful. Rich, I know you're chomping at the bit here to obviously respond to what we're talking about here, but also give a quick synopsis on your relationship with Dr. John here.
Yes, so myself and Dr. John go back a very long time ago. I was in my 20s, late 20s, 26, 27. Yeah. So I see this guy come in, and I was like really rough. So, I learned a lot from him throughout the years. And I don't usually on a podcast, I always want to speak right away. With Dr. John, I let it because I was so used to working with him and I would let him speak. Will be like a team concept, Then when he's done, I go on. The last 10 years, the whole decade, we're doing the veteran thing has been very difficult for me. I reach out to Dr. John quite a few times for help. Dr. John is like one of my coaches permanently, you know. I can always reach out to him, and, you know, even if my mindset is not right or whatever, I can get fixed with him just by talking to him as a friend, as a coach, as a mentor. I reached out to him with this veteran thing because here's the veteran situation. You got vets that actually are coming back from deployment all messed up, right? So it's very important to have the team that we have developed with Dr. John Menarchik. That team's been around for plus 30 years, you know. And I reached out to him, and he was working on this thing and told me I have just the perfect test. Now, Dr. John's always done assessments. There was an assessment that he used to be a recruiter and a trainer back in the day with Ford, and he used to point out, Richie, these sales guys, they're rebels. This is that, right? You remember that test, Dr.
Sure
John?
do. Yes, I do.
So that test was a game changer. Why was that a game changer? Because it eliminated, we were tracking personalities. That's what we were doing. So when I was in Georgia, he says, hey, I have this test, which it's almost all done. I want you to take it and see how it works for the veterans. He's been helping me a lot with this thing. And the good thing about it is the integration that I can do with his team, the psychology end, which he's got access to 20 of them, right? In that environment, and bringing that to the veterans. Not only are we going to train them and place them, we're going to try to help them to come back from deployment. That is the hardest thing, bringing them back to society. In the first 90 days, I have learned that they either have a job or they don't have a job. And within the first 6 months, they become homeless. Okay. So that is a big thing. So the integration of Dr. John, Washington knows about it with this grants that I'm doing and all that. That integration is helping us get to that next level. So when I was with Dr. John, we had something called Voice of the Customer. Remember that, Dr. John?
Oh, yes, I do. VOC.
It was focus groups, okay? So we got CSI coming out, all that stuff. We've been in the business before that CSI thing. So that voice of the customer was important. So we extracted that information from the voice of the customer. Let's find out first what the customer wants. It's much easier to sell what a customer wants than what we want. So we would fix dealerships and we would fix stores with the voice of the customer. That was one of the biggest things that he came up with. And I was part of those focus groups. Well, now we have the voice of the vets, right? Let's find out the voice of the vets. What is it that they're having a problem, which so many vets are committing suicide? I mean, it's so high. You know, Lee, that book that I donated to watch, and I keep talking to them about it. It keeps increasing. So that's a really good opportunity that we can really help with the Institute, but we can help the veterans manage that better, you know, help them out more. And as far as the government's concerned, all the government wants to do is get the workforce for the vets. They already sent them to deployment. They're back here, and now they're like, where am I? So they have the debrief thing for the first 90 days. And, you know, and it's a problem. So the integration with Dr. John Menarchik which has been in my life since in my 20s, you know, was one of my first mentors that I had. And I learned a great deal from him. And he's a very positive and outgoing person, as you can tell. He really knows how to help others. He really knows how to help people. It's really an amazing thing that I've been lucky enough to meet him, and lucky enough that, you know, he is with me for a long time. So I can just say, here you go, and run with this ball, because it's a mind thing. You know, it's a mind thing. The vets are really their mind, and it happens because of the breakdown. It happens because of the training. It's just like when we used to go to a dealership, we had to break down the dealer principal or the manager to rebuild them up. But the problem is the military has this. I've seen the videos consistently about this training. It's rough. This training breaks you down. And in the rebuild, that's where there's a problem, like personalities and characters, and behavior. You can break down certain people and they come back and bounce back up stronger than ever. And you can break somebody down and he'll never come back because it just won't happen. And these are things why Dr. John, we reached out to him for quite some time to help us with this product line. And he's really helped us. We had our first event in Florida, actually paid by the government, for the full thing that we did. We had to recruit 30 people, this, that. Larry did a really good job, Mr. Feldman. We recruited not only vets, we recruited regular workforce, because the regular workforce is also in trouble, so we recruited that, and it worked out pretty good. It was our first pilot program. It worked out pretty good. And now we're integrating Dr. John's behavior assessment, which I'm very, very impressed with, because what does that do? Lee, you can hire me as a salesman, right? And train me. I'm really good with follow-up, right? You can hire another guy that might not be good with follow-up. I was the guy that followed everything up at Polk, right? All the time. I couldn't stop, right? So that's what I was good at, right? Follow-up. Another salesman might not be good at follow-up, but doesn't mean that I'm a better salesman than him or he's a better salesman than me. He might be better when he meets somebody, boom, and closes them immediately. I might not be that guy. I build relationships and then I go for a close, right? A whole different thing. But that's behavior. That's not really personality. That's my behavior. My behavior is always that, right? And the person that closes right away, his behavior might be he's always going to go after you to close you now, right? Big difference. Two different types of people. So we learned that personality is not the dominator, it's the behavior part. Dr. John had a 5-track product that was trained, that was amazing. I used it plenty of time. I used it throughout life. I've used it throughout life, the 5-track, right? 5-track is more like the personality and more like this. Now it's the behavior. So you get that behavior and integrate it with that 5-track, and 100% of the time, it's going to be successful. With that behavior, what training and what knowledge you're going to give somebody for them to actually stay in the dealership and make a living.
Right.
That's what's really interesting about this. I can take that 5-track and show it to you, and it might not work for you, but it might work for me. It might work for Gene, or it might not work for Bart, right? We'll come up with another thing that might work for him, because when you know what's up here, right, you're able to communicate with them so they grab it, right? That is the game changer. And that's what I've told, like, the government, we don't miss. It's like when you have a laser beam that's targeting you as just hitting somebody, boom, big difference. You have now what I call an intel missile, right? That you press a button and it hits directly and you never miss, because now you got the behavior, all about this one person. Now you're able to develop that training process and that training content so they grasp it. So now, instead of retaining, every human being retains 30%. Instead of them retaining 30% because it's more about what they know, now you're retaining 40 or 45%. And that's what I think this behavior thing is really good.
Yeah. Dr. John, so most people, let's bring it down to the automotive world here, but I'm sure it pretty much carries over into most cases out there with business. But people walk into a dealership, they're pretty darn sure of the car they want normally. And it's very rare that people will walk out of a dealership and say, you know, that Honda Odyssey, it was terrible, and I'm going to leave a bad review. Right.
Yeah.
Unless it's the pre-owned world, which I know maybe the car's not kept right or it's not clean or whatever. But when you're dealing with specifically new cars, people know what they want. They walk in, there it is. It's shiny. It's perfect. So these bad reviews are really stemming, I would imagine, in most cases, just from the experience.
That's right.
Having, whether
That's
it's
exactly right.
Right, 6 hours to deliver a car, or or the salesman really couldn't care less about connecting your needs to the vehicle, or you just didn't feel like you were getting the time of day, or whatever, no cup of coffee, whatever it is. But why do you feel that dealerships continue to make this mistake? With, I'm assuming that's basically a lack of assessment. Why?
It's such a great question. I would call that the $60,000 question, because one of the things that we had when I was working with Polk and Reynolds, we were visiting over 1,200 car dealerships, and we did like what Richie was talking about. We gathered the voice of the customer, and we found out that in many cases you didn't get offered a glass of water or a cup of coffee, right? So to start with, it's like when you think about it, you're going to spend thousands of dollars and you don't even get treated with again, something to refresh you. And then secondly is the people who are the best in quote and sales, transactional sales, they're thinking about selling the product. They're not thinking about servicing the client.
Right.
And so one of the things that's been happening in my experience, one of the things that has been happening gradually is that we're realizing that, a transaction is selling a car today, but a relationship build is trying to help that person get their needs met today so that you can service them and hopefully service them to the point of selling them the next vehicle and the next. So to your question, we've now, I think, started to turn the corner on this, Lee, where individuals are starting to take a look at, and I like to say that I believe the experience is improving. It's like people say that they long forget what was said, but they'll long remember how they felt.
Right.
So that it's that feeling part that what we're talking about. We call it culture. Right? That's the culture. Yeah. One of the car dealerships that we were most successful with in Sterling Heights, Michigan, we took all of the salespeople off the showroom. We had two greeters, an older lady and a younger lady, and they would greet the customer or the prospect as they come onto the floor. There were products there and there were kiosks, but there were no salespeople. There were no customer relations people there. Right. However, the two individuals were assessing the personality or the behavior of that client, that customer, that prospect, and then they would call back into what they call the bullpen, and then they would identify which they thought was the best person to communicate more effectively with this client, customer, prospect. Wow. And so we started to see that we went from selling that dealership went from selling 180 cars a month to 700. I mean, it was a real rock. And the president of the Ford Motor Company came and met with us to see what we're doing. But to your question, I really think it's an important one. It's a mind shift. It's realizing that the person that's coming there, they need your help. And if they're coming in to buy a Mitsubishi Eclipse and they got a family of 5 and a dog, you probably ought to put them in that Odyssey, right? You ought to try to talk about what they really need as opposed to what they really think they want.
Right. And it's funny too. There's a dealership out in Riverhead here, about 20 minutes east of where I am. And I know multiple people that go to it. And the one thing I always hear is, they have a vending machine in the waiting area that's free. You could just tap and get free snacks and coffee, and it's clean. And I'm like, how was the price? Did you get a good? How was the sales experience? Oh man, the snacks. My kids with the snack. Yeah, my daughter actually asked me. It was yesterday. She said, "Can we go to Bob's? Bob's is a furniture store here. I don't know if it's all over." Yeah. And I'm like, why in the world would you want to go to Bob's Furniture to hang out today? And she said, because of the free candy and ice cream and treats and movies, and they cater to the kid. All the kids can go run to this corner and hang out, and you're shopping for furniture. And my kid is promoting a furniture store now.
And you know what, though? I would argue that she's promoting the experience. I mean, exactly. I agree with you. It happens to be a furniture store, and I agree with it. But we love Bob's, by the way. But of all ironies, It's like it's the experience that you started with. You said, what's the experience like? How is it that you're treated? How do you feel? What is it
Right.
that you notice in your feelings like? So that's where I believe that what we're talking about is so important in terms of the vets, by the way. When I think
Right.
about that, it's like, but I'm proud of our government. I'm proud of our military. My father was, in the Army. My three uncles were two in the Army and one was in the Marines. And you might
Mm.
guess which one, said which one had the tattoo and which one came back ready to fight. But it was
Yeah.
kind of cute. And my nephew and niece were 20-year veterans from the Air Force. So I have a deep appreciation and frankly admiration for our military. And we have profiles on individuals, these BSP profiles, who were pre-military, and now we have many that are post. And what we
Oh,
see is how the military has done I'm going to put in quotes, a great job of keeping your earlier comment, Richie, breaking them down to build them up. Well, that protected them to the point where they're alive. Now I think it's our obligation, and it'd be my honor to help look at ways that we can help veterans to get back into that reinstitutionalization or re-socialization where they can start to live a productive life that they deserve.
yeah. Just a side question here that sparked something in my head. So you have assessments of people before they go into the military and then when they come out.
I do.
Let's say they're solid, hardworking before and after. Do you see a complete shift in the types of jobs that they should be in when they're coming in? Are they more analytical and more?
What a great question. Let me take a step back to answer that. In our model, we've identified 13 behavioral styles, and so it's if you think about on a wheel like a clock, it's like 30 degrees apart for the 12, and then there is a 13th one that has near equal amounts of these three ingredients that we call red, green, and gray. But the point is, we do see a shift that goes from more feeling sensitive, more of the green we call it, feeling, caring, and sensitive, to much less of that and much more of what we call the red gray. Red is about getting things done. Gray is taking orders. Gray is
Mm.
doing the things that they've been taught to do. And that's not the easiest way to be able to live in society. You can, but the higher the percentage of green in a person, the more likely they are to communicate with others, the more likely they
Mm.
are affiliated. About 60% of the North American population lead with green. And
Mm.
therefore, we have seen the veterans that have had I would call it the reduction of access to green, and much more doing the results that they're expected to do, and then that they're without question. So now when you come back into society, it's like if they're, in my opinion, I think that reindoctrination ought to allow them to have the ability to now start to feel again, and not
Right.
to have not PTSD feeling, but real feelings, care, compassion, sensitivity. So
Right.
yes,
Right.
we've seen that transition. Again, I believe that it's very successful, and I'm proud that our military can and does that. But I also would think that we now should find a way to be able to honor our vets by getting them what they need to be able to be more successful back into society.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do need to have that mix of obviously having an emotional connection with the people you're dealing with in sales, because they see through it. I mean, customers. Yeah. If you're just going through the motions and pretending like you're excited for them, I feel like these days, especially, most people are pretty sharp and they see through that stuff. Richie, so pretty interesting because we always talk about how veterans it's literally what we say all the time, that they're about tasks, about wanting to be in a structured environment, and they
Right.
flourish and do well in a structured environment. But we have to also make sure that they have that balance of being able to connect on some kind of an emotional level still with the customers, to connect them to that product that the customer loves so much, right?
Right. And the good thing about vets, right? When maybe 12 years ago, when I went to Arizona, before the nonprofit existed and all that, I was invited from Veterans Affairs in Arizona to see a training session, right? That had to do with training admins, okay, from the affairs, right, which is right down the street from the building, right? So me and Judy went there, okay, and She said, Richie, try to talk to them and see. So I started talking to them. I said, do you guys believe in training? He says, in the military, the way of our life is training. Right? So now you're dealing, when I saw that, by the time I got back, I told you we're putting up a nonprofit for this, because they all said, we get trained every morning. From 5 o'clock in the morning, we start training, exercise, fitness. Then there's something called roll call, right? And they all get at 8 o'clock with their coffee, and training starts. Train. So I know, as a professional trainer, that I've been with Dr. John Minarchik with a lot of different things that we've done. I know that if that person believes in training, they're going to succeed. A lot of guys say, I don't need to get trained. Leave me in the showroom. What are you kidding me? That's a waste of time. With the veterans, it ain't about that. They value training first.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a way of their life. So when I saw that, I saw an opportunity. When they all told me that, I said, give me your right hand. Who here wants a job that gets trained, and who here wants a job that doesn't want to get trained, that you can just start right away? You know what they told me? None of them raised their hand. None of them. They're used to that infrastructure and structure. That's why a lot of them leave. They become police officers. They become FBI agents. There's an infrastructure with the United States military. And one of the problems, apart from the breakdown, is they come back and they don't have that infrastructure.
That's right.
When you're used to, your behavior is used to that infrastructure, it's more like a habit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that us humans are creatures of habit, right? So now that habit is getting broken. Now what do? Right? So
Right.
I analyzed that for quite some time, and I put that, thanks to Dr. John's knowledge that I got from the voice of the customer focus groups. We ran them all over the country, and I learned a lot from that process. So I did that process with the vets to try to see. And I know the car business, when a trainer shows up on a Monday and tells the GM, put everybody in the conference room, there's 3 or 4 guys that say, I don't need to get trained. How's he train me? Does he know how to sell cars? That's exactly what used to happen. Now you have an audience that's used to training and used to knowledge and used to that infrastructure. That's great for the automotive sector.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what moved me to be where I am today.
Yeah.
I wanted to really understand what their process was when they went to the military. All that. I was more into the military, and Dr. John knows my story very well from years ago, before I had the nonprofit, why I have this special thing for the military. We were 4 friends, and 3 of them went, and I couldn't go, right? And because I had suffered from epilepsy. Then in that process that I always wanted to have that, my son wanted to go to the Army. He never did went to the Army, right? He canceled it. But I opened up the nonprofit with a building, with everything, and all the stuff that I did with my partners and all that, for him to go to the military, come back, and have something when he came back. So I did it for 2 reasons. I did it for him, because he was going to the Army, but I did it because I also wanted to be in the military. And I said one day, I'll be part of that brotherhood one day. And what it does when you hire a veteran for the automotive space is it lowers your cost of acquisition. Let's talk about Penske Automotive in Scottsdale. BMW has a whole team of veterans. Has about 6 teams there that just deal with veterans. Arizona is one of the biggest places for vets, right? So the whole thing with that is they sell more cars, that team, right? Because it's a brotherhood. right? And the cost per acquisition is a lot less than the whole store.
Mm-hmm.
So we've learned through one organization sells more cars through veterans because they have veterans. It's a brotherhood. Veterans sell to veterans, veterans sell to their families, and veterans sell to their relatives.
Right.
And we've learned that hiring a veteran, not only do you have somebody that's effective because of the training, all this stuff, not only that, they're going to sell to their veterans. It's a brotherhood.
Right.
Right. So now you're dealing with something called retention, and you're also dealing with something called let's sell more with less cost per acquisition, because you got people that are used to being out there, in Veterans Affairs, in the hospital, communicating with everybody in the community that they're veterans. So that's an important process for a dealership today, as the cost of acquisition is so crazy. And the retention doesn't exist.
Wow. So, Dr. John, when an assessment is complete, what is the end product that a business sees, and how is it presented to them?
Another good question. Thanks, Lee. It comes in a quadrant, the information. It's the top two are in your professional life, and the bottom two are in your personal life. On the left side, it's your typical responses, and on the right side, it's your stressful ones. So you look at a quadrant, and we actually take those four, add them together, divide by 4 to give you an overall score, an overall sense, one of the 13 behavioral styles. But then we actually show the graph on how much red, green, gray a person has in each of those 4 quadrants, and then how much what we call blue, which is the 4th color. By the way, we believe these are the universal behavioral traits. We believe we've been lucky enough to have discovered the 3 primary ingredients that go into behavioral styles, which leads into personality. But back to the question. So what they do is they get a chance to take a look at the quadrant. They can see that if there's a difference between the way the person's interviewing. I mean, if I interview with you, Lee, for a job, I'm probably going to be on my best behavior. But what this shows is best behavior, but then it also shows some of the worst behavior. So you start to see the differences in terms of the way an individual is likely to respond under stressful situations in their professional life and under stressful situations in their personal life. And also the measurement of blue will tell you the likelihood of how long that person will stay in distress. And we actually now have correlations between these stressors and diagnostic codes, because we have about 10,000 interviews a year. And with those interviews that we have, it gives us a chance to be able to start to do some assessment and research to identify who's most prone to depression, who's most prone to anxiety, who's most prone to being a bully, who's most prone to withdraw, so forth. So we start to look at those characteristics. And by the way, I hope that this is an okay thing to say, because we believe that there are certain profiles that would not be as good for sales as they would be for service, or they wouldn't be as good for sales as they might be in terms of behind the scenes doing arithmetic activities, right? Or some kind of accounting things, or being more likely to be detail oriented versus less. So we can start to identify within this scores of 0 to 150, their scores in these red, green, and gray attributes. It's on a scale spectrum, and the amount of blue, and then they can have that profile, and they look at the profile. It's actually now 22 pages of information.
Wow.
And then we are now getting ready to go live with the LMS learning management system. So someone that gets this profile, they can get a chance to do that. We call it doc in the pocket, where they get a chance to have coaching on a regular basis. And then they'll also give let's say the leader of the company, a dealer or a general manager, it'll give them the overlay of the basic behavioral styles on how to communicate more effectively with the team, and what they need to be careful of with individuals within the team, and how they should be able to integrate that information. So they get a report, and the report is self-explanatory. There are I think 11 videos in there as well, so that persons can look at the videos. But then there's this LMS system. It's AI now powered, the back engine that goes out in the World Wide Web and pulls in information as well. So we're really we're proud of that. And we've had a little over, we've trained actually over 500,000 people in its pre-existing model, but now in the last 10, 11 years, we've done actually over 10,000 with specific data collection.
Wow. And is it timed in any way? And do you ever catch people, or are you able to tell if people are trying to fake it?
Yeah. First question. Yeah, yes, it's timed, but we keep that as an indication. It gives us some information about how the person was likely to take it. I just had a 22-year-old gal did it in 17 minutes. Wow. So she's rapid. It takes usually about 20 minutes to half an hour. But anyway, she's rapid, right? But I've had some people take it over hours. But that means that they probably started and stopped and started and stopped. But
so it's not a deadline. It's not a deadline. It's just showing you how long they took.
I'm sorry. Yes, the answer to that's a great question. Yes, it is.
Okay.
And then, but the other part of that is one of the things that we identify is there are fake good and fake bad options, and we have a pretty good judgment on whether the person's trying to fake good, or frankly, a few people try to fake it bad. But it depends usually on the way they take it. Now, this is a behavioral analysis. Let me take a step back of it. I believe in personality. Actually, I did my dissertation on personality, but I have now realized that it's not about personality, because that's set by the age of 5, rarely to change. But if you want to change it, you got to change your behaviors, because your personality is the sum total of your behaviors. And if you want to change your behavior, this is the real key. You need to change your states of mind. Those 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day, we want to influence how we can look at ourselves and the world through a different lens. We want people to become less reactive and more intentional. And so, because most of the time, if you really think about it, the things that upset people, most of the time, thankfully, don't come true, or they dissipate quickly. So the answer is, if since it's behavioral, then we believe that the person could take the questionnaire again. We almost always ask them, when we do a training class, for instance, we have 8 classes in this material. I'll show of hands. Did any of you take this when you were under severe stress, or feel like you were in some ways being threatened, or that you had to take this like for your boss kind of thing? And if they say yes, then we say to them straight up, it's like, if you would like to take the profile again free of charge, please feel free. We'll send you the link. We'll let you do that, because we want you to get truthful information. And then sometimes people say, well, yeah, I was a little stressed, or yeah, I had problems. So when they take it again, here's the cool part. Most of the time, they're still very similar as they were when they tried to fake good or fake bad. They're similar, but that their scores in each of those areas typically are greater if they fake bad, right? Because it's like a flexible. Think of it as an elevator going up and down on these 3 floors, from your blue base to a red, green, gray. And they can change from any of the quadrants. So if I have a high score in my red, which is I do, and then my green, which is next, and gray is last, then I can take my elevator up, get off at the gray floor, stay there as long as the floor is big. So in other words, I can expand that. And we do classes on how to be able to like grow your blue, right? Red works, going green, and then gray matters. We teach people how to increase those scores in those areas.
You know what I find when I take, because I've taken probably, I would say 5 or 6 different assessments when applying for jobs in the past. One of them was like 300 questions. It took me quite a while. But I find that when I'm taking it, my mind catches on to the repetitive nature of scenarios. So it might be question 2 is about how would you handle this situation. Question 70 is very similar. And I'm going, okay, I see what they're doing here. That's it. Yeah. So, but then I tend to overthink and say, well, it depends. Like with the scenario that I'm in, I'm like, man, there's no option here for, it really depends, on certain things. And I'm like, how do I answer this? And now when I answer this one, it's going to be different than the other one. And I find myself caught, my mind definitely, I probably have 81,000 thoughts. But
yes, you do actually. Yeah, you're a deep thinker. I can see that. One of the things that we have 2 forms of this assessment. We have a 12 question, which is a rather quick one. It takes about 6-7 minutes. And we have a 60 question. Now, if you think about it from the quadrant perspective, 30 of the questions, right, are in the professional life and 30 of them in your personal life. Of those 30, 15, and it tells you which one they are. It's not trying to be secret, or it's straightforward. 15 of them are in your personal typical, 15 are in your personal stressful, 15 are in your right. And so you can start to see how they start to blend. And then what's nice is the person has the ability to take a look at that, and they'll obviously about 95% of the people that go through our training classes tell us that it nailed them. We've been really fortunate. We have really good inter-rater reliability with that. However, if the person is honest with themselves, which is what they typically are, they want to get this feedback about how they are in their professional and personalized, stressful and typical set scenarios. But when we do a couple-day class, we'll have folks that'll come back in the second day and they go, I wasn't so sure that I agreed with this, but when I went home, my wife said, "Oh yeah, that nails you." So it was kind of cool for them to get that validation that way as well.
Wow. Well, Dr. John, from where I'm sitting, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. And again, like I said, I've heard a lot of positive, but you really took the show in a totally different direction with questions, and you kept opening my mind to all kinds of new thought processes and scenarios here. Really cool. Richie, any final words?
No, the final word is that I gotta roll. I gotta get out of here because I'm running a little late. No big deal. Just about 15 minutes late. That's all. So have a lovely day, Lee. Thanks a lot, Dr. John. Like always, it's a pleasure. Have a lovely day, and God bless every single one of you guys. All right?
Thank you, sir.
All right, Dr. John, thanks again for being on the show, and thanks to everyone out there for watching and listening. Have a great day, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.